Surely the Lord is in this place. As I look at all these beautiful faces, it's a time to go within. You can either close your eyes or go to a low gaze and take in a deep breath. And what you're breathing in is the vibration and the frequency that is love. It's palpable. It's palpable within you. We can feel it. Our heart beats to it. Every breath is the acknowledgement of who we are. Divine beings, precious and strong and powerful. As we breathe in, we open our hearts to be receptive to the teaching. We open our minds to receive only our highest and best good. We are loved beyond measure. As we take in that breath, we acknowledge the truth of who we are. And when we leave this sanctuary, we take that with us. No matter where we go, where we are, we will always have the knowing. We will always have the comfort. We will always have the reassurance that all is well and all is working together for our good. As we breathe in that knowing, we acknowledge and we let it be so. And so it is. Incredible. And it fits with my topic, being limitless. What a big topic that is, right? So let me tell you a little bit about myself. In another life, which was, maybe 5-7 years ago, I retired from Las Vegas Child Protective Services. There I was a therapist working with Child Protective Services, which is abuse and neglect, right? Abused and neglected children, their parents that are the abusers, or people that have neglected their kids, foster parents. I worked with them to keep the kids in the home after they were taken out, because when you feel like you've been abandoned, you see other people that come into your sphere either as a villain. And so sometimes it's hard to keep those placements, even though they can be really loving. So they would call in a therapist to keep that placement going. But then there are some kids in foster care that would have like 10 placements and maybe even more by the time they aged out of the system. Anybody familiar with the foster care system, Child Protective? So you know I'm speaking your language. I also worked with kids in juvenile detention. Also kids in the mental health organizations there in Las Vegas. So 22 years, it kind of influences you on how you see the world. But one of the biggest things that it did for me is it helped me heal my wounds. That's right. Most therapists do go into counseling to heal the dysfunction in their own family. And oftentimes they'll go throughout their whole career and not know that. It took me 10 years. I was there 22 years. 10 years, I was asleep at the wheel. I was going through the motions. But after the 10th year and whatever God was pushing me toward, I began to start looking inside. And I needed to look inside because my life was a mess. So I had gotten into a victim-villain cycle in my life. Let me tell you about the victim-villain cycle. I grew up with a dysfunctional dad. He didn't know how to connect with me, so I turned resentful and hatred toward him. Had a lot of unresolved wounds with him because he wasn't the dad on the Cosby Show. He wasn't the dad in, Leave It to Beaver. He just wasn't that kind of dad, so I thought I was really missing out. And so I had a lot of anger and resentment. He was the villain in my life. The victim in my life was my mom. She didn't leave him. I told her all the reasons why she should leave him, but she didn't listen to me. And so she was the victim, and I had a dad that was a villain. And in my adult life, I was creating the victim-villain cycle with every person I met. My boss was a moron. He was definitely the villain in my life. And so I thought I would pray on my way to work, God, please change him. He needs to change. There's something definitely wrong with him. He does this, he does that, and he's hardly there. I think he should be fired. And I was a newbie. He had been there many years. And you know how the county or government jobs work. You're there for 30 years. So that coworker could be your boss in 15 years. That boss is going to be there a long time. So I had created these victim villains in my life, not to mention my ex-husband who was fighting me for custody. He was a villain too. So on my way to work, I was like, oh, would you change these people? Or why is this happening to me? Whenever I said that, I became the victim. So I had these loops of victim, villain in my life. You were either the victim or the villain. And I wonder if you can look at your own lives and say, how have I made that loop? Because remember, we're creating the reality. I'm creating these roles for people to play. I'm not a victim, you see, because I'm one with God. But I had forgotten, and I wasn't trained to know that I am also the creator of my reality. I was trained to think that things just happen. And that victim-villain thing is just a thing that everybody does, and that's just the way it is. But that's not true. Our dysfunction does come from our childhood. So I've been a therapist for almost as long as I've been alive, and I know trauma. But can I tell you something? We may have traumatic pasts. Now hold on to your seats. Everybody got their seatbelt on? Because this is also perpetuated in the movies we watch, in the stories that we listen to, in the fairy tales. Do you know that Little Red Riding Hood is scary? Did you know Hansel and Gretel is frightening? Do you know that we tell that to our kids, or used to, as nursery rhymes? Do you know that kids are the most vulnerable and the most programmable from 0 to 7 years old? Do you know that's when they learn language? That's when they learn how to survive. They mimic us. So from 0 to 7, you can program them like a computer. And do you know that there's an intentional force keeping the trauma going? So yes, your dad drank and you had some trauma. Yes, you had that. But do you know that inside the matrix, it's perpetuated? They perpetuate the trauma. So I talk to a lot of people, and we excavate the trauma, and we're working on that trauma. But then I say, what are you watching? And then I also say, what did you watch? Because that victim-villain cycle is inside the system that we're in. So how many people recognize that on Sunday, when we were growing up, that we would sit in front of the TV and it would be the wonderful world of Disney? Let's see the Disney villains up on the screen. Did you know how many there are? Look at all these villains. Do you remember Captain Hook? And didn't you identify with either Tinker Bell or Peter Pan? And who was the antagonist? Was Captain Hook, and they're going to get them all, and that's the villain. And oh my goodness, that's horrible, and I don't want to be a victim. And so we create victim, villain in our life. Did you ever realize why you watched a Disney cartoon? And I think the first one I saw was Bambi. Remember that? What do you remember most? That the parent was killed in the very beginning. And you're just so sad and frightened. How does that play out as a child that is programmable? Well, the Father, Mother, God is one. And once you take away that parent, you're left unprotected. You're left in fear mode. And when you're in fear mode, you can be controlled. You can be told what to do because you're scared. And so do you know that a lot of the things that we watch, whether it's Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, there are no parents. Do you ever notice how in these cartoons, the parents have been compromised? Even in Frozen, the parents die. This is no accident. What it's programming to the child is that you are separate from God. You are separate from your protector. You're separate from the one that loves you the most. And what does that do? It sets up fear, and you go into victim-villain mode. There's no accident here that our whole matrix is programmed for you to stay stuck in fear, loneliness, sadness, depression. The list goes on. And then you come to a mental health therapist, and I've just got to say, stop watching Disney. No, I'm just kidding. Don't go to Disney World. No, I'm just kidding. This isn't about Disney. It's really about you being aware of all the things in our society and in your reality that told you were separate from God, and you're not. You've never been separate from God, but you were led to believe you were. Should I say that again? Okay, I'll say it again. You were never separate from God, but you were led to believe that you were. And it's programming, just like a computer. And so in order to be limitless, we've got to recognize all the players that are blocking us. When we as a collective set up the victim-villain mode, who wins? Well, the war machine wins. Because you've got to have a villain, you've got to have a victim. And we accept it. Why? We've been programmed to. That's just the way it is, right? No. That's the way it is when you believe that you're separate from God. A lot of things show up. Let me just throw out some words to tell you how the collective consciousness creates reality, and see if it fits into the victim-villain mode. Gaza, the administration, immigrants, or should I say illegal aliens, people of color, black people, racism. All of these things are part of the collective consciousness creating the reality, and then we watch it on the news. Victim, villain. And then there's the paradigm of the rescuer. Sometimes we were the rescuer in our families. My mom, victim, my dad, villain. What's my role going to be, right? And that's our thinking when we feel like we're separate from God. So one of the reasons why I thought my boss was a moron was because I was filled with resentment, hatred, all kinds of things toward my dad. Can I tell you a story? I was on my way to work, and I was 10 years of being asleep at the wheel. And I was really asking, could you please change these people? Get them out of my life, do something. It's these people outside of me that's causing the problem. I'm midway to work, and all of a sudden, I see Jesus. Now, I'm on the freeway. Right. So I'm on the freeway. You usually don't have a vision while you do it in meditation. You do it when you're safe at home. You may even do it at a retreat, but not on the freeway. Mine happened on the freeway as I'm asking people to change. So I'm on the freeway driving. I see a blinding Jesus in my peer view, and the next thing I remember is that I'm in a parking space at work. That's not my usual parking space. And I'm just crying. I am just crying because the last thing I remember was asking, why can't this moron be fired from my job? The next thing, I'm in the parking lot crying, and I have this deep, explosive heart love for my dad. I wasn't even thinking about my dad. My dad had nothing to do with this, so I thought. But what that energy was showing me, which is always for your highest and best good, was that it didn't start with my boss. It started with my dad. The resentment, the hatred was showing up here so I could see the truth. That my boss was reflecting back to me what was inside of me, resentment and hate. And once I loved my dad, I started to love my boss. Oh, I was so in love with my boss. That gushy kind of love that you have with a newborn baby. And I'm in my car just crying, and all of a sudden I'm feeling love for me. I wasn't asking to change me. I was perfect, I thought. But I just knew that if I loved my dad and I loved my boss, that it's just all reflections of me. So I loved me really, really a lot. I remember going into work, just my eyes were swollen, and I told my coworker, I said, I just love everybody. And I told them about seeing Jesus, and she turned to me and she said, I think you had an epileptic seizure. So that's when I learned not to talk about these things. I think I can share that with you guys. But what I had done in that parking lot, what God had done through me, as me, was I broke the victim-villain cycle. So I know I don't look at somebody and measure them. Are you a victim? Are you going to be the victim? Am I the victim and you're the victim? I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not creating that reality. But I see that being played out in the collective consciousness. And so that's why I know the anecdote. The anecdote is the F word. No, not that F word. Forgiveness. Now my mom would always say, you need to forgive your dad. I wasn't ready to hear that. I mean, my eyes would roll up in the back of my head so far when she would say that because I did not understand what that meant. It wasn't until that parking lot that I knew that my resentment and my hatred was mine. Now, I told this story earlier in the service, was that I went to Tlaquepaque in Sedona where they have dancing, and I wasn't going to go, but something inside me said go. And I said, well, I'll only go if I get a word for the service, if I get some message that I can share with the service. Sure enough, I go there. This gentleman comes up to me and he's talking about my license plate, how much he loves that. Be the one is my license plate. And he said, I have something for you. I said, okay, what is it? He said, love is forgiving. Love is for giving. And love is forgiving. And I was like, oh, that's good. Because it's true. I was able to give love to my boss, to my dad, to me, when I released all that stuff that I had held on to. But I needed to forgive me. And the reason I needed to forgive me is because I thought I was separate from God. I needed to forgive me because I was convinced I was separate from God. Because people were showing up in my sphere and I thought it was them. There's only one here. It's me. And when God came into my heart, I saw that all of these people are me. Now that's spiritual maturity. Most people don't get to that level. But we're at a time where we need to rocket ship up to that level. It's not them anymore. It's what we're holding on to. And the collective consciousness shows us what we're holding on to. Hate, fear. And when we become one with God, it's love, it's compassion, it's joy. It's letting go of those loops, those loop-de-loops, villain and victim. So this song by Charles Holt, listen to the words. Let it sink in. Because we need to forgive ourselves. Look at the times we're living in. Isn't this a perfect opportunity to remember who we are? That we are God beings. We are not separate from the divine. The divine is in us, as us, working through us, thinking as us, creating that reality. But when we feel like we are separate from God, we create a reality that is separate from God. And we can see it so clearly now. But it is not up to somebody else changing. They need to change. Oh, that is so elementary. That is what the programming wants you to think, that it doesn't start here. But it does start here. It started with me right here. And I began to see the truth that everyone I'm looking at is a reflection of the divine love, creator, power, strength that created the heavens and the earth. Do you see how powerful that energy is? That energy is within you. And you have the power to create something without God, fear-based, or you have the power to know exactly who you are, to stand in your power in this time, saying, I choose to love, I choose to be in heaven, I choose to be in this space where I am not separate from you, therefore there is no judgment. There is only love and compassion. You see, God is power. You heard the power come through my voice. God is also gentle. You have that range to choose from. That range is within you, within all colors that you have, all the gifts that you have. Bring them forth now. You are limitless. And it is based on all of those programs that you have been taught since you were 0 to 7. But it is time to step into your spiritual maturity and know who you are. And no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You are protected because the God within you is combined now. It is not separate. You cannot unring this bell. You have heard it. Your heart has heard it. You cannot pretend that you are less than divine. As you go from this place, remember one thing: love is forgiving. Love you.